This film is not just about the history of the old village of Worthing, it's also about this area today, with the Sydney Walter Centre very much at its hub. This building was originally Sussex Road School and was opened in 1902. Many of the people we interviewed as part of this project remembered coming here as children, and their memories form part of this film.
Yes, was
You've forgotten Gilly, Mr. Gill.
Oh, that's right, Mr. Gill.
He was the science master.
Mr. Gill, the science master, then, and Mr. Jacobs was the carpenter woodwork man over in the new. Well, it was then the new building.
The royal wedding took place on April the 29th, 2011, and we captured how local people celebrated the occasion. The Sydney Walter Centre has operated since 1966 and is today one of the most thriving community centres in the whole of Worthing, with a whole range of activities for young and old. This project has been possible with the support of the workers and the volunteers who use this centre. Just before I start on the topic this afternoon, just to introduce myself, I'm Chris Hare and I'm the project manager for the Worthing Village Heritage Project. And you'll hopefully most of you have already seen one of these flyers, but if you haven't, there'll be one on your chair. And I'll just say a little bit about the project for those who don't know. It's funded by the Heritage Lottery Fund, and the idea is to research the history of the old village of Worthing, because long before there was a town of Worthing that grew up as a seaside town, there was a small agricultural village that dated right back to the Anglo-Saxon period, and that village was situated more or less in this area. In fact, Old Worthing Street followed what is currently the north end of Chapel Road, North Street and High Street down to the Steam. And for hundreds and hundreds of years that was the extent of the village in terms of houses and cottages. So it was a very, very small place. And the change came with the visit of Princess Amelia in 1798 that put Worthing on the map as a potential location as a seaside resort, and then everything changed. But even after that, even quite late into the 19th century, the character and nature of the village was still here in terms of the people who lived here, their attitude, their customs, their folklore. So we're looking at that history. That's very much an important part of the project. So we'd obviously like you to get involved. It's great that you're all here today, but it would be even better if you felt able to actually sign up. There's a little slip at the bottom where you can sign up for the events that are taking place.
We live in Upper High Street. We've lived there for about 5 years and heard the talks on. It's fascinating. It's quite mesmerising. Really interesting, really interesting. So it's just to get a bit of history about our local area, really.
My family originally from Southwick, so my brother's researching that area, but I've been here 26 years now, so I want to know more about this area.
How do you think the talk's going?
Yeah, I'm very pleased to see so many people. Must have about 60 people here. So it's a really good start for the project. A major part of the project was creating a website about the historic buildings of Old Worthing Street, with local historians Ron Kerridge and Barry Keach taking the lead.
Well, the real advantage of the website is, you can build it as you go along, and it's easy to change. The other benefit, as we were looking at the broader project, is you can involve people and they can make their own submissions, and we can sort of build that into the website itself. But the website can just grow, and it's available obviously to 8-10 billion people across the world. So that's why we chose a website rather than a book.
Originally, the only street going through Worthing was Old Worthing Street, which is now the top of Chapel Road, North Street and High Street. So we chose to show how Worthing has grown by looking at that street. But we were desperately keen that this website could be used by local historians and family history researchers and just about anybody. So you can start off by just searching for a surname of somebody in the Old Worthing Street, or you can actually search on the name of a house, or you can take just the guided tour through each of the streets. The photographs came from at least 3 private collections of friends of mine that kindly gave us access to all of them without any problems at all. And of course Martin Hayes in the library has let us use their fabulous site there, so we can put on. And the other thing is, of course, during the investigation, we've had people from the community offering photographs which Barry's been able to put on the website as we go. So this is marvellous.
So as the project's developed, have you found that the other people who are involved in the project have been able to help you with information and images?
Oh, absolutely. I think Barry gets lots of emails as well.
Definitely. One of the things on the website was just the email address to sort of give us information, and we've received information from people in the community, and so the website's grown above and beyond the things that just Ron and I have provided.
And the website will continue after the project's ended?
Absolutely. Hopefully the website will never end, as they say. It will continue to grow.
Volunteers visited West Sussex Record Office at Chichester, where most of the oldest documents relating to the old village are to be found.
Well, this building's West Sussex Record Office, and this is the search room. I'm one of the search room assistants, so when people come to the record office, we're here to help them because sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming when you come in for the first time, especially. We have lots and lots of documents. Some of them are quite difficult to understand, and we can help people get the best from when they come here, so we can show them different things that we have. Worthing is part of the parish of Broadwater, which was quite a large parish. So I've got the parish tithe map of Broadwater up. It's very, very large, and we've recently digitised them, so I'll be showing them the digitised version. And I've also got here the 1748 map of Worthing. And over there I've got a logbook for Sussex Road School. Oh yeah. I know.
I've got one junior or senior. We're using junior one right now. Senior's gone.
Yeah, this is the top map, isn't it? I think. Yeah.
Just there, isn't it?
So I'm just trying to think, there's...
Oh yeah. Yeah.
It's 1852, and it was produced for the Worthing Board of Health, which was established in that year and superseded the Worthing Town Commissioners that had been the previous local authority. And the map is on a vast scale and includes all possible detail, every tree, every wall, every footpath. And here, see this area, we've got the Swan marked, Box Cottage, which is still there, North End Cottage, which is now the Hollies, and there is the footpath that still runs all the way to Broadwater and is very obvious on the map. And where Sussex Road now is, or maybe just south of where Sussex Road now is, probably where the Sydney Walter Centre is. We've got a couple of slaughterhouses, and it's typical that they would be on the edge of the built-up area. What's interesting about this map is it clearly shows the old village of Worthing, but you also see over here to the left the development of the town, and these buildings would have only been, say, 50 years old at the time this map was produced. So this is the 1810 Enclosure Map, and what this map shows is little strips of land, and this is how fields were divided up in the medieval fashion. At one time each peasant would have a strip, but as time went on, individual landowners accumulated a whole series of strips, but not necessarily adjacent, so you could have ownership right across the area. And what Enclosure did was to bundle them up into one block of land with one owner, which made a lot more sense from the point of view of farming. And you'll see marked on here the names of the owners, and you'll also have the names of the fields. So here we've got Home Field, and this was called the Home Field because it was the field nearest to where the village was, nearest to home.
We're sort of just looking out for names of people and their occupations. This is the baptism register for Broadwater in the year 1814. I just found one. It was a Major General, and their son was Wellington, one of their names. Son Wellington.
It's always interesting to find out what's gone before, though, on any piece of ground.
Well, you have to consider this has stayed the same probably since the Norman Conquest up to 1850, 1860,
and then
so
suddenly
for 750 years nothing had probably changed a great deal, and then all of a sudden, in 40, 50 years all this has changed forever, really. It's never going to go back to what it was, is it?
That was Haynes Road. This is along the seafront. Look at those.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And you can see the different
clothes and everything,
Yeah, but that one's in colour.
Yeah, yeah.
This one's in colour.
It tells you what date it is.
It's very well. It's got the King's head on there, but
Yeah.
it doesn't.
No, the Queen's grandfather's head, that is.
We also visited Worthing Library with its extensive local studies collection.
Anyway, welcome to Worthing Library. Welcome to really the largest collection of local history material in the whole county. We're here, of course, as part of Chris Hare's Worthing Village Heritage Project. I'm Martin Hayes. I'm the County Local Studies Librarian. I'd like to say, first of all, just how the Library Service welcomes this project. I think it's a fantastic project to be involved in. I'm assuming because you're all here, and many of you will have gone to the other events that Chris has organised, and you're volunteers, and you actually want to get hands-on some topics like the buildings in the Sussex Road, the ancient Worthing village area. Marvellous, absolutely marvellous. People like yourselves getting involved and actually doing research. So, as part of that project, my aim today then is to introduce you to the sort of material that we've got in the County Local Studies Library. It's by far the biggest library in the county for local history material. Just to whet your appetites, we've got something like 1.5 million photographs and pictures of West Sussex in the past, and they date back to as early as the English Civil War period, 1640s. We've got beautiful prints and engravings of various parts of the county, coming right their way up to, there's a chap that does a CD of fantastic images every year, so up to 2009 effectively. So terrific collections. We've also got over 25,000 local history books, 5,500 historic maps that go back to the Elizabethan period, the late 1500s, etc., etc.
Well, Ian and Mary Leedham, we have a 1934 Austin, which we sometimes use for weddings or just sometimes use for displays and car shows, because we are classic car buffs.
He decided he wanted an old car, so that's how we started, and then because once we got the car, we started on the memorabilia to go with it.
People in Worthing would have seen a car of my model. Mine actually came from Scotland, but there would be lots of cars like it along the promenade in Worthing, and people would have been wearing this sort of thing in the 30s and 40s, just promenading. And around the place, I've got a couple of postcards in the car of pictures from the 1930s, postcards from the 1930s, with similar sorts of cars on it. It would only been people, a lot of professional people, I guess, mainly would have had, and baronets and upwards. Sort of. Generally speaking, some people did have cars. They did Lost in Sevens and things like that, but it wasn't really a working class thing to have a car. In fact, even up into my childhood in the 50s, our house was the only house in the road with a car, and that's because we had a lodge room as a car dealer.
Okay, this is Daniel, and he's wearing a SEAT Second World War uniform. He's in the Royal Air Force wearing a Canadian battle dress, but in those days the British Army preferred the Canadian battle dress because they're a better cut than the British Army battle dress. And he's protecting an Air Force base in Burma against the Japanese, and then this is his uniform. So there would have been guaranteed a lot of people in military personnel in Worthing wearing the Canadian one, but in a minority. I'm a member of the Gurkha regiment, the 17th Gurkha regiment, and who fought Japanese in Burma. And even though I'm wearing an European battle dress as opposed to a Southeast Asian campaign battle dress. Initially, they were issued these during the war, beginning of the war, but towards the end, the British Army issued canvas, denim material battle dress, which I don't have on at the moment.
I first started the collection because children at school did a project on children during the war, at home during the war. So I collected up bits and pieces that would have been used in the kitchen maybe, and then it sort of grew. I'd trail around car boots and antique fairs after him, so I started looking out all the bits and pieces and arrived at this. Curling tongs, waves in your hair, had to be heated, usually over the gas or in the fire, and then normally they were tested on a piece of newspaper or something like that, because if you had them too hot and used them on your hair, they would burn your hair. So tested on a piece of newspaper, and if the newspaper didn't singe, you were all right. What's this? That's a gas mask. Normally carried around in this cardboard case, but if you were a little better off, you then have the posh case version. So that was a little more sophisticated than the brown box. We used to take the school children to the New Haven Fort at New Haven, where they've got a lovely museum of wartime stuff, and it's very hands-on, but they were all told not to try them at gas masks because they've got asbestos in them. So all the times we used to wear gas masks, so that's not to be tried.
In February 2011, we asked local people with memories of the Second World War to come together to share their reminiscences. Hello, good morning. I didn't expect this. I really didn't, and it's lovely that so many of you could come along. Now, first of all, I'm going to show you some extracts from the Worthing newspapers from just before and during the Second World War, and then I'm going to show you the photographs that I found at Worthing Museum. Now, these photographs were taken by officials from Worthing Council. It was a statutory obligation. They had to film all bomb damage in the town. Now, although there have been pictures of the Second World War published in many books and newspapers over the years, I don't believe these photographs have ever been published. And some of them are quite extraordinary because some of them, the roads haven't changed that much in 70 years. So when you see 2 or 3 houses collapsed with half a roof in the street, it's quite shocking. I came across an article about the ARP wardens, and it said that they had the right to enter people's houses and check they weren't abusing their respirators, as they call them, and that people could be arrested if they were, I suppose, if they were broken them or children were playing with them. And I thought it's really draconian that someone could actually go into your house and I want to see the respirators. And no one remembers that, do they?
I remember you had to wear them. If you were seen in the street without one, somebody would stop you. Some warden would stop you.
But if you didn't have the bag around your shoulders.
Carry it all the time, cinema and everything else.
I never believed in gas masks. I didn't think it would happen. So I used to carry a banana or a bar of chocolate. The air raid shelter at the back of the town hall. I was stuck in there for 5 hours once before the all clear went. And I thought, I'm not going to do that again. I'm carrying my food around.
Now, any memories of the Home Guard?
We did our first guard at the corner of the end of Haynes Road and Haynes Road. We expected to cost to the land, the half-brick can come up there. And that's where we were waiting for. With 5 rounds of ammunition. That was 5 rounds, 10 rounds, sorry, 5 rounds each for the yard guard. And you had to take them out and give them to the next guard going on.
But the LDV was the first home guard. That was my father. He came home one day with a band around his arm, LDV, which was Local Defence Volunteers. That was the first name for the home guard. And he was issued with a rifle because he was a First World War veteran, obviously. And the older members, I think, I'm not sure about that, but some of them were issued with rifles early on. But then, of course, there weren't enough to go around. It was very much like Dad's army, really. It was Dad's army. It was Dad's army. Well, it was, absolutely, as you know.
In Lansing, a major moat was the chap in charge of the Home Guard, and nearly all the professional people, chemists, doctors, and that sort of thing, were in the Home Guard because they had reserved occupations, but was still able men.
I don't know if anybody knows, but at the old St John ambulance place, outside the big old flint wall that runs round it, there was a German plane crash immediately opposite, and as it came down, the wing of the plane knocked part of that wall down. And even to this day, you can see the rebuild of the wall.
It was the doctor's house, wasn't it?
That's right, Marjorie Davis.
Marjorie Davis.
Now, this is Haynes Road, another of the worst incidents. 7 people killed. Terry, yes, you.
I can tell you something strange about that bomb. My auntie was walking along Pavilion Road. She got about as far as Jacob's Ladder when it fell. She had her arm walking along with a friend, and when the bomb went, he got killed. She was absolutely all right, nothing wrong with her. But he, that she had her arm round, was killed by the blast.
I suppose he protected her from the blast, I suppose, then.
Yeah, he must have been on the outside.
How
That was when the bomb at Haynes Road fell.
Many of the people involved with this project remembered coming to the Sydney Walter Centre when it was the Sussex Road School. Some people remembered the school as far back as the 1930s and 40s.
I'm from East Worthing, Chester Avenue, where I grew up all through the war, and for us, I was 10 when the war broke out, so I grew up in East Worthing all the way through, apart from national service, and have been here more or less ever since.
Excellent. We do music lessons in here with Mr. Young, and I think when I think it was the history, if he wasn't available, Mr. Young used to stand in, and I don't think he knew as much about history as we did before we started. But it was all great fun, you know.
Yeah.
This is interesting here. Look.
Yeah, that's
The outside up there.
Lovely.
None of that was there, right? And you had a door out there, and one time they had a big load of potatoes or Swedes or something from the Dig for Victory thing, and they put them all in a box and said to the kids, take them home if you want them. The kids got into the box and were throwing them all over the playground and everything else, and there was one hell of a stink about it, because you know, you bring back produce from the gardens, everybody's throwing it all over the place, so that was pretty awful. Oh, there's a name, Dr. Duke.
Dr. Duke.
Yeah, because
He's not a favourite. You remember him?
Yes, I do. And do you remember he was a victim of the First World War, and he was gassed in the First World War, and he always had a mug on his desk of water, and he would drink the water, you know, periodically through the lesson. And we as kids
got some tadpoles one day,
Oh.
and we put them in his water. You know.
We got a
Yeah,
gas
I
mask
wasn't.
in St George's.
Ah,
Well, we
yeah.
didn't get a gas mask here. We had to go to St George's
Take
to
them
get
off.
a gas mask.
Yeah.
And I got
Yeah.
mine at Lindis Road gas mask.
Oh,
Where we got what I've always said that I was expelled from Lindis
St
Road
George's wasn't it?
because we were a scruffy old lot in Chester
Oh
Avenue.
yeah, you were at that school. weren't
Muddy
you?
shoes, and you're supposed to have polished shoes. And Miss Wilson was very, very prim and proper, and very much an upright lady, and she wanted everything pristine.
But I wasn't there very long because I was only about 4.5 when I went there. Then they moved us because of the bombing.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and the hospital was across the road.
Yeah.
We were right there, and they were aiming for the gasworks.
Quite, yeah, my friend
So
Georgie
they had to
Wheeler.
move us.
My friend Georgie Wheeler was bombed there.
Yeah, was he? Oh, was he?
Yes, he was under the piano with his sister when the bombs hit Wheeler's and Hammond's, which were the two shops where that gap
Yeah.
is. And he was under there, and he was okay. They went to hospital, but he got back and he was all right.
And these of course were all classrooms here.
Yes, classrooms here.
And that was the assembly hall, the big assembly hall. And that's where we used to sing for all those sailors on the sea.
This was the headmaster's
This is the
study.
headmaster's
Yeah,
study
that was all upstairs.
Dapper Bess.
And we used to have to stand here. But when the lessons changed, they blew a whistle, and you were standing here, and the whole school used to come out of their classrooms to swap, and you could, all the kids used to see you standing there. Oh, I wonder what he's
Yeah, I
up
wonder
to."
what he's done. I
Yeah,
wonder what
what
they've
he's
done.
Yeah. Oh,
That was part of the punishment.
That's right, it was, wasn't it?
It was a bit of an ordeal walking up those stairs, was it?
We haven't been up there for a long time, have we?
I've never been.
I don't ever
Never been,
remember
never.
going up there. No, I don't ever remember going up there.
Dapper
I've never
Bess.
been up there.
Dapper Bess was the
I may
headmaster.
have stood here and
Stoney was the man
latching.
who gave you the cane if you were bad. Bunny Young was arts master. Kennard, there was a Kennard.
Mr. Kennard, yeah, and Mr. Clark was the history.
Nobby
master.
Clark was the history.
Were you?
And he, his speciality was picking his ear with a toothpick. He used to always be picking his ear, looking whether he got any wax on it. I think.
We had the school assembly here,
This is where
and then
we
after
bowl
the school
now.
assembly there was a,
We do
it's
short
been
mat bowling
removed now,
here.
there was a portable screen that they poured across
Yeah.
with windows, and then that part of the school became Mr. Lindsley's arithmetic class
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah.
And then it was all put back again, you know, afterwards. So that, then we had a Mr. Spawn, who was the science master, in the building that's the other end of the playground.
Oh, wait a minute.
Upstairs was Mr. Spawn, and downstairs was...
You've forgotten Gilly, Mr. Gill.
Oh, that's right, Mr. Gill.
He was the science master.
Mr. Gill, the science master, then, and Mr. Jacobs
Jacobs
was
is woodwork.
the carpenter woodwork man over in the new... Well, it was then the new building, but it's hundreds of years old now. But
Other people record living in this area in the years immediately after the Second World War.
No, I was actually born in London, which I have no recollection of whatsoever. We moved to Worthing when I was months old. I lived at 12 and 16 Station Road, first 12 and then number 16, and then we moved to 8 North Street. And it's probably a significant part of my life that all three houses have since been demolished.
And what was Station Road like when you were a child,
Well,
where you were living?
I'd like to say at this point that Robin lived at the posh end of Station Road. Anything Homefield Park end between that and Ivy Arts Tunnel was known as the posh end, and the other end, which was Ivan and Kennett's Yard and the Castle Pub and Alfie Butler's Rag and Bone. They were all
shop.
They were all down, you know, which was a pretty unsavoury part of Station Road, really. And it was all the coal. We used to have wooden railings at the other side of the road, and they were all unloading all the coal and the sheep and cattle when they were when the slaughterhouse was still open in Vaughan Road, because they used to go along Station Road. And it was just wooden shutter between us and the shuntings for the coal, where they unloaded all Worthing's coal then. And I have to say that people who worked in there were very good, because they used to chuck coal over the fence, and we as kids used to pick it up from the road and take it indoors.
Was that appreciated, I should?
It was very much appreciated. It's just the same as when the sheep and the cattle come for, we'd be out there with our buckets and that, picking up all the droppings from the back garden.
That abattoir and the sheep are still there in the 50s.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm not doubting that.
They used to bring herds of sheep over the railway bridge.
Yeah.
And if I was coming home for lunch from school, at the girls' high school, the bus was held up because you could only move as fast as the sheep.
That almost sounds semi-rural, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it was.
And that was in the 50s.
It was semi-rural.
That was, 54, 55 still.
Yes, at 8 years old we drove the cattle from Railway Approach, which was the goods yard, which where Morrison's is, over the bridge, along Newland Road, Chestwood Road, to the slaughterhouse in Bram Road, and that was every Saturday. And I think we used to get paid. I don't know if you got paid threepence. And that was the age of 8 years old, driving cattle from A to B. One thing you didn't do was lock your front door.
No, we all had a key hanging from our letterbox, because everybody only had one key in the house.
Rent was left on the stairs.
And so we used to laugh about burglars, because if they wanted to take anything out of our house, they'd have to bring it in the first place. It was a standing joke.
One of the jobs Tom and I used to do was collect pig swill.
Yeah.
Pig swill consisted of all the old vegetable matter that was left over in kitchens, taken to a central yard somewhere and boiled, and what was left was for the pigs to eat. And I think that's one of our jobs at one time, Tom, wasn't it? Collecting that, just going around the houses with a dustbin.
When we, made me laugh. People think about recycling now. In the 40s and the early 50s, this country was absolutely magic of recycling, because nothing got thrown away. Nothing got thrown away. I'm saying, remember Little Rellens in North Street, the old clothes shop?
Yeah.
She used to have all her clothes stuffed in the front, with no folded or anything. It was just chucked in there. And at the end of the school holidays, we'd be taken in there and we'd get fitted out for next year's term of school, I don't know, for about £0.50 or something like that, which was a lot of money in them days, okay, but... And I think both of you remember when King George VI died, when we were all paraded in the corridor here and told that the king had died, and I can remember all the girls starting to cry. And I was looking around saying, well, I didn't know him, and why are they crying? And we were then sent home.
But I was in the tops class then, and my sister was in the class who the teacher, I don't remember, she was a young lady on the left as you come in the back door there, and they had musical movement on the radio, and they interrupted musical movement to announce that the king had died. And that teacher went and told Mr. Lunn, the then headmaster, and Mr. Lunn came into Mr. Colcutt's class with the rolled up Union Jack and said, which way up do I hang this? I've got to hang it at half-mast. But the one I remember while I was at Sussex Road is definitely the Festival of Britain. The school made a big thing of the Festival of Britain. We put on special play on the stage, and I remember I was Princess Elizabeth, because the whole family of four royals went to the Festival of Britain opening, and I remember I was Princess Elizabeth in the play. But we made a big thing of the Festival of Britain here.
Yeah, it was a major thing, and then just 2 years later we had the coronation.
Oh yeah, the coronation.
Coronation was huge.
We were marched down to Foresters Hall and we were all given a sixpenny piece and a mug.
And a mug, yeah.
Yes, we all had a mug, every school child.
You can see them in all the charity shops now.
Every road in Worthing was decorated.
Yes, it was.
Every road.
I'm saying in our generation, Homefield Park was absolutely a buzz all day, every day.
And pretty flowers.
It was our playground, wasn't it?
It was lovely.
Mr. Collins, the one-armed.
Oh yes, I've forgotten him.
Lost an arm during the war.
The groundsman.
He used to catch his bird nesting and right old clump round the ear.
What games were played at the beginning of the year?
Well, I don't know, but fake cards was definitely a summer game, because obviously you couldn't play fake cards on a wet pavement. No. Marbles, I think, was probably after Conkers in the winter.
A soapbox. Down in Station Road there used to be a wood yard, which made ammunition boxes. And any spare wood, bent nails we used to collect, and pram wheels from the local tip, and make a soapbox and rush down Homefield Park.
So sort of a go-kart type
That's
thing.
it, yes.
November would of course bonfire, but at the end of October everybody was making a
roller skates, and all of a sudden roller skates would come in. and chased around Homefield Park as a track.
But hoops had gone, hadn't they?
Hoops had gone, but girls, we did skipping, and of course
skipping
we had
games.
skipping rhymes, which, as you know, go back centuries.
And they were tied against the lamppost normally.
And you'd have a big washing line, and if you could persuade older people to turn the ends, and then even 8-10 girls would get in one skipping rope on that rhyme.
So that rhyme you went to, how would it go then? You
all in together, girls. Yeah. This fine weather, girls. And all the time you're skipping to that rhythm. When I call your birthday, please run in. January, February, March, April. And when it was your month of your birthday, you ran in.
So
and then when you got to December, then you started again. All in together, girls. This fine weather, girls. When I call your birthday, please run out. Ran out on your birthday month.
And all in together, girls might be 6 or 7 girls all jumping up and down at the same time. It was clever.
And then, you know, they were doing bumps, which was you turned the rope underneath you twice while you were in the air once. Oh, you were good then.
You're talking about bumps. Birthdays. If they found out it was your birthday, I'm saying the kids used to go flying up there in the.
This was the classroom we hold our history lessons in, which is the first classroom on the left as on the right as you come in. Morning at 9 o'clock, you had to stand up as you walked in, and you had to hold up a clean handkerchief and make sure you had clean hands, clean fingernails. She inspected every child, and if you didn't have a handkerchief or your hands were dirty, you were sent in the corner with a dunce's hat facing the wall.
Literally a dunce's hat.
Oh, do you know,
remember that one?
I don't remember anything like that at all.
Do you still remember horses being used?
Oh, the milk was delivered by a milk girl, packed from Knights the Dairy in High Street, packed the milk girl, and the horse moved to the next stop without her telling it. She took crate off the back and was delivering to 2 houses, and when she turned round, the horse had moved on to the next place.
My name is Nona Worley. I've lived here in Sussex Road since 1955, and I have seen such a lot of changes. At that time the school was in action. My husband's family had the fish shop in North Street, and right opposite there, now where the gardens are by the Swan, that was a garage. They used to do lots of repairs for the cars, and all along the corner opposite the old pub, which is now the Johnny Owner. Yes, it is. And all the shops were, all that corner was all shops. And the corner where Waitrose is now, that was a lady lived there. There were 4 houses there, and of course that was all knocked down.
How were the people who lived there then different from now?
Well, we all spoke for one thing, and we knew everybody, but now it's all changed and nobody speaks, only my next door neighbours. We are a block of 4. And originally these grounds were nurseries, fruit and vegetables. I can't remember who owned it. There used to be, used to be a tank parked at the end of the bridge.
Oh yes.
From the war. That's from the war, yes. Or Bland's house on the corner. It's not called Bland's now, but that used to be the shoemaker. And there was a gentleman who used to live in Lennox Road. He never had teeth in his life, and he spent out and bought himself a new pair of teeth. This is a bit funny, or it's a bit pathetic really. And he got his new teeth, and he went into the shoeman and he said, "These teeth are killing me," he said. He said, "Can I just borrow that grinder?" He said, "Yeah, but you've got to be very careful." He said, "No, just tip it." And he said, "Oh, of course I can easily do that." So with that, he put his foot on the teeth were all over the place. So from that day to the day he was used to deliver the milk, he never had a set of teeth in his head.
Project members got a rare opportunity to go behind the scenes at Worthing Museum.
Okay, this is the art store. As you can see, all the art that is framed on the racking here. So mainly oil paintings. Some of the smaller prints and watercolours along here that are framed are on the shelf, and then those that are unframed are kept in boxes similar to these one here, which are acid free and layered in between with acid free tissue paper to protect them. The space here, as I said earlier, is air conditioned, round about 50 to 55 degrees, and relative humidity is kept down just so as that everything is protected in the best way possible. There's a mixture. We have to consider that although there's oil paintings here, there's also watercolours on paper, there's gilding on frames and things like that. So there's a lot of different materials that we have to consider.
Now this collection of cottages here, painted probably in the 1930s, shows a series of buildings that certainly dated back to the late 18th century and were demolished in 1959. And we know exactly where they were. They're opposite the Swan pub. But this painting here on the left, which shows Pellet's house in High Street, would be very difficult to define where it is or where it was if it wasn't for the fact that here on the left you see a building, and on it quite clearly is the sign of an anchor. And the anchor was one of the very early public houses in Worthing. And so that road is probably Lyndhurst Road, and those houses are now in the road, demolished long ago. What you do notice is that the dates of the artist is 1874 to 1939, but when you look at the costume of the women, it's clearly much earlier, more likely to be early 19th century. So the artist wasn't drawing from life, he was depicting a scene before his own lifetime. So that needs to be borne in mind, that it isn't necessarily an accurate representation. Would you say that?
The dress is early 18th century.
Yeah, and so so it is earlier, isn't it? So he's painted it, imagining it in an earlier period, which is interesting.
Hence out in the road.
Notice over the shop there, wasn't it, in below?
Yeah, I can't work that one out. There's not many hens in the High Street now.
Well, not for long.
Not in Waitrose.
Yeah, they're in Waitrose, yeah, that's it. The Anchor pub had its name changed some 20 years ago to the Jack Horner, and the current pub isn't the original building, as it was rebuilt probably in the 1890s.
This whole space here is the costume store. Costume numbers about 30,000 pieces. We say that kind of vaguely in the sense that years ago when cataloguing was done, everything is catalogued and everything is on the system. When cataloguing was done, if things were brought in bulk, so somebody brought in a whole outfit, so it might consist of about 5 or 6 items, it was given one accession number, and everything was. Now we're sub-numbering it because every single item should have its own number. So we're probably going to end up with more than that. The collection covers. I'll show you. The earliest complete garment is a blackwork jacket from 1612.
And this is from 1611.
1612, 1615 to 20, but we think, yeah.
That's amazing, isn't it?
So all hand done. There is some alteration to it. We think that they fastenings will have been added later, but in the structure, it's actually in perfect condition.
Wow. 400 years old.
Yeah. Also, we've got very rare is a census of Broadwater, which of course Broadwater parish Worthing was part of, because it didn't have its own church. So actually it does list all the streets and who lived there in 1821.
That's not in the record office. How have you managed to hang on to it?
Thank God. Partly because actually a lot of things, I don't know where this one came from. This one has come into the museum. When they were sorting out a lot of the storage in the town hall, a lot of it was kind of saved, and we have to thank Ron Kerridge for a lot of the stuff that came here to the museum, because he was given, he used to spend his lunch hours from his job going down and sorting out the records, and anything that he thought was of interest, he brought here to the museum.
A very unusual item in the museum collection is the Henty Cup, with its intriguingly ambiguous inscription. So you could read that he's actually been thanked by the local people for exposing informers, not actually for suppressing smuggling. And it's certainly true that there's evidence that people in all social classes supported smuggling, particularly at this time, 1818, when there was acute economic hardship, and a lot of people were suffering. So, you know, it'd be very interesting to know exactly what lay behind this. And there must have been a public subscription to raise the money to create this and to present it to him. And the Hentys were a very, very well-to-do family. The first bank in Worthing was the Henty Bank. And then later in the 19th century, Edwin Henty, who was chief magistrate for years and years, was a dominant personality. So that's a pretty intriguing piece of social history, really. A trip to London and the British Library newspaper section at Colindale resulted in a wealth of new research.
The death at the Swan. Oh. The 18th of April. Sudden death at the Swan Common Lodging House of Ludwig Karl Mayer, aged 34, an Austrian waiter. An inquest to be held. The deceased had lived in Worthing for some time.
And then the Worthing Observer, this is all the Worthing Observer, 1907. And George Bashford, a fisherman of North Street, pleaded guilty to drunkenness in Montague Street, and P.C. Sock was the arresting officer. The prisoner, who already had a previous conviction, was fined 10 shillings plus costs. His Worship, I hope you will not be before us again, prisoner. I hope so too, sir. I'm very sorry I had a drink. This is in Sussex Road. It was number 7 Sussex Road, and you went in and you tried to steal some money, but the lady there realised that he wasn't who he said he was. And then he was confronted by the householder, and he bolted. And then the street, everybody, all the neighbours in the street all ran out, about 50 to 60, shouting, "Stop thief." And this was at number 7 Sussex Road. He traced the man to Shoreham and arrested him for breaking open 3 slots, and the man replied, "All right, but I know nothing about it." But on the road to Worthing, the prisoner suddenly remarked, "Well, I'll tell you the truth now. I went into the house in Sussex Road, broke open the meat, but I should have done if I had got the chance. But when the woman saw me, I ran away. Now you know the whole truth." And the reason he'd done this was because his wife and children had had nothing to eat. And he also admitted 2 other burglaries, and he was remanded to the petty sessions. And I think P.C. Slade originally on Shoreham Bridge, he was arrested with charged with stealing 9 shillings and a penny from the Worthing Gaslight and Coke Company.
Yeah, things that contrast the present with the past, you know, because you think, oh yeah, fraudulent gas man, that would imagine that happening today, but you can't imagine the whole neighbourhood turning out, can you, and chasing him down the street.
What I had to do was look at a book by a man called Sayer, who in the early 20th century looked at 3 Worthing graveyards, West Tarring, Broadwater and St Andrew's Church, Broadwater and another one, but I can't remember that.
Was it Christchurch?
Christchurch, that's the one, yeah. And he noted down all the gravestone inscriptions and put them into a book, which I then sort of got all the information from and made a few statistics about gender, age at death and year of death. For the earlier part of the 18th century, so 1700 to 1750, age at death was around 50, 60, and obviously occasionally the 80-year-olds who would be seen as super old or whatever. And eventually the life expectancy comes up during the 18th century, and so it's averaging at about 60, nearing 70 by the late 18th century. However, the curious thing is that post-1800, but sort of after the Napoleonic Wars and up to 1850, life expectancy suddenly drops. And it's quite curious, because obviously you think, the advancement of living standards would result in a higher life expectancy. However, it's for some reason, perhaps it's medicinal treatment worsened, or maybe a industrial revolution has caused toxic fumes, and there's a big drop in life expectancy. Again, it obviously recovers post 1850 to a higher level than the 18th century.
As Chris has explained, obviously it's to do with the Worthing village. The school was down by Waitrose, the war memorial has been moved up here, and there are various names on there. There are two names that really stand out because there are a lot of them. There are 3 Slaughters on there, which is an appropriate name obviously for a family that was slaughtered during the First World War, but it obviously meant something else originally. And there are 2 T's on there. As it happens, both the Slaughters and the T's are related. They were second cousins. The T's had lived in Worthing since at least the first decade of the 19th century, and they seem mostly to have been bakers and confectioners. And they were in, I suppose, what we call the New Town, which is off Montague Street, Portland Chapel Street, I think it was originally called. It's now called Portland Road. Yeah. And the poor man that lost 2 of his sons was called an Albert T, and he had a grocery shop and a post office actually in Lyndhurst Road, which is quite close to the Alexandra pub there. I think it was on the opposite corner as far as I know. His 2 sons were Reginald Arthur T and Albert Edward T. One was killed at the Battle of Lewes, which I think was more or less the last gasp of the regular army in the autumn of 1915. I think the troops from the Kitchener army were just beginning to join the forces on the front. And his brother, Albert Edward, was killed at the Somme almost exactly a year later. I think he was killed at the attack on the Schwaben Redoubt, which is, there's an enormous great memorial there at Thiepval to 57,000 people that have got no known grave. Albert's cousin, that's Albert Senior, was a Cunnature. I don't know how to pronounce this actually. Cunnature Anne tree. It's either Cunnature or Cunnature. It's a very unusual name. And she married a Walter Harry Slaughter. Mr. Slaughter's father and grandfather were brewers in Warwick Street. I assume they also had a pub there, but it's not clear from the census. I haven't actually looked at the street directories. Walter himself was a writer and grainer. I think that's a sort of very skilled painter and decorator. He lived in Warwick Place, which I think is that opposite the Egmont pub? Yeah. They lost 3 of their sons in the First World War. One, I think, was a regular soldier, so he joined before the war, but the other 2, I think, were either territorials or joined up for the duration of the war. The first son was killed at Gallipoli, I think in June or July of 1915, which is obviously Winston Churchill's great military adventure, which all went wrong. Another son, whose full name is Hubert Melville Slaughter, which is obviously on the memorial there, but he's called Melville on the memorial. He was killed on the Somme. And Leonard Slaughter was actually killed in a battle which was quite famous at the time, called the Battle of the Boar's Head, which was a diversionary track immediately before the Somme campaign. And the 4th Battalion of the Royal Sussex Regiment were more or less wiped out at this attack, but because the Somme came exactly a day later, nobody remembers it now.
The thing that I was going for was Newland Road, and there's a terrace of 14 houses. When you look at them, the faces are different, and I just felt, what's it all about? So it's on the south side. When I looked, I went into several things. I used the directory, Worthing. I haven't had a chance to link the directory to the census forms yet, because the names that are on forms are slightly different. And I could see that they were built piecemeal, which was really quite interesting. And at the back of one of them, which is 122, there's what looks like a barn, but it was a workshop. The first man who lived in 122 was a builder, and he used it as a builder's workshop. And over the years, different people rented it, and it was at one time a confectioner's, another time somebody who mended boots and shoes. But I can't go on with it now because it will really bore you, but it's quite interesting to see how it linked along in the years.
Obviously your family is very ingrained, isn't it?
It is, and I'm particularly not just in my father's Payne family, but because of so many generations of the family, intermarried with so many of the other old Worthing families. And I'm interested in the connections between the families. I found from some of the wills how they used to help each other out. And I think some of the marriages were very much sort of marriages of convenience, as in the olden times.
But I think my grandfather died in Providence Terrace.
And what was his name?
Poland, Frederick Poland.
Ah, so he related to Bernard Poland then?
He was Bernard Poland's father.
Bernard Poland's father.
Yeah. And the old boy, Frederick Poland, he used to go to the Anchor a lot. Apparently he was a carpenter, and it's come down that he used to have to sell his tools in the pub to buy a drink.
Desperate times.
Desperate times, yeah. My grandmother died. She was only in her 30s when she died.
Yes, because I've heard that from Bernard. That's his mother, wasn't it?
That's right, yeah.
Really, the key thing in doing oral history interviewing isn't to have a vast knowledge of history, isn't even necessarily to have a vast knowledge of Worthing. The main thing is empathy. If you're interested in people and you actually want to hear what they've got to say, that's the major ingredient to do a successful interview. Would you agree with that? We also got together for a Christmas party as a thank you for all the hard work.
It's Sue and Mona over there. They're doing very good work.
May I just interrupt and say that it's extremely interesting, and that's what takes the time. You're so busy reading it, and it's so interesting, and then you sort of get out of an hour's reading, you will get something, perhaps 10 items that are actually recorded, and that is, I think, the difficulty with indexing. It's fascinating.
We're not allowed to.
I hope it works.
Well, firstly, a big thank you to Dorian for putting all this on. I think she's done a brilliant spread.
Yes, my name is Dorian Reed and I'm the Centre Administrator, which in layman's terms means that I'm the jack of all trades. So I do the cooking, I serve in the bar, I deal with the office work, and I meet and greet people and give them information about the centre.
This is my social life, this is. Without this I don't have a social life because I don't drink, I don't smoke, so I don't go out. Except here.
And what do you do here then?
Well, I on Monday mornings I come for my exercise class, and then on Thursday afternoon I come for short mat bowling. And then on Friday we come for bingo. And you get to know everybody that comes every week and everything else like that, and it's like you're all friends, you're really all friends, and it's a social life really.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Dorian is so easy to work with. Whenever we need a haul, always here for us, always helps us out, and honestly could say that it's probably one of the nicest halls that I teach at, actually. So yeah, really, thumbs up.
I first started coming to the SID about 19 years ago. I started using the gym, and straight away I could see that it's had something special about the SID. It's got a lovely atmosphere. It's used by all members of the community, no matter what their abilities are. It's very welcoming. I was asked to go on the committee about 11 years ago and reluctantly accepted. And since I've now risen to the dizzy heights of chairman, so I am the king. I'm the chairman of the management committee, and the most difficult thing has been to try to tackle the problem of becoming independent really from West Sussex County Council. That's been tricky, but it's all coming to a head now, and hopefully the reason why we want to do this is we want to have control over the centre. We want to manage it as a business, and so we can give a lot more to the community. We used to get about a £14,000 grant from the county as a social services grant, but we haven't had that for about 12 or 14 years now. We're self-sufficient, we're a standalone charity, and any money that we make is made through people that use the centre.
Do you think people are aware of that?
A lot of people aren't. They think we're funded by West Sussex, but we don't get a penny from West Sussex.
To my wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death us do part, according to God's holy law, and thereto I give thee my troth.
Okay. So you helped as well?
Yes,
I live at number 13. I've been in Stanley Road for 5 years. So yeah, when Emma came up with the idea, we all got loads of people in the street got involved and very, very enthusiastic. And we're ever so lucky to have neighbours as well, and to live in this street because everybody is ever so friendly and lovely. And what have you done here? What have you arranged today? Just talk us through.
Well, we did a collection because we did get our public liability insurance, although that's debatable whether we need it, but we did a collection, and even the first time we did a collection, I think we got about £250.
Very generous.
Which has gone towards the decoration and things like that. We had 5 meetings.
We've organised activities, we've organised
street art, pimp your bin, pimp your bike, pimp your scooter,
a puppet show.
We've had a puppet show already this morning, the children have loved it. And everyone's kind of, we've got another lady down the road who organised all the food, so she went door to door and said, so that we didn't have everything of the same thing. I think we'd love to do it again. I think everyone's really, really enjoying the freedom of having their children just being able to kind of mill around and in and out. Yeah, there's a daughter at the end of that. My daughter's somewhere. I'm an irresponsible parent. Oh, there she is. Cheers.
I'm Dan Thompson. We're in Tower Road in Worthing, and we've taken over the street today without any permission from anybody. Without any organisation. People keep saying, who's the organiser? Nobody organised this. 2 of us decided that at 2 o'clock we'd have a party in the street, and this is the result. We've got music, lots of bubbles, dancing in the street, loads of food. Everyone keeps turning up with more cakes. It's great fun.
And so are you doing this because of the royal wedding, or just because you fancied it because it's a day off?
We're the 2 of us that discussed it initially are both Republican, so this is not the royal wedding street party. There's been no mention of the royal wedding whatsoever. We're just out having fun.
Dan's just told us you're all anti.
No, Dan's wrong. He's made it up.
We need to have
He thinks he's Citizen Smith.
Yeah, we're loving it. We loved the wedding, didn't we?
We loved the wedding. The dress was beautiful.
The dress was beautiful. They were beautiful.
The carriages.
The carriages.
Oh, the carriages were fab.
And
Absolutely
the way
beautiful.
they kissed twice. Tears in eyes. Yes,
It
really well.
beautiful.
And we remembered Diana, didn't we?
Oh,
Woohoo! Yeah, it was very moving.
So, and you know each other really well?
No, never met before. Don't even know her name.
But we're the same generation,
that's true.
aren't we?
But we are the same age, except I'm older.
I'm older.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I think the important thing is that we've shown that you don't need to organise anything. There's a sort of great British tradition of you have a committee and a steering group and a working party, and you spend months working up to something, and we've done none of that. My great-great-granddad, I think it is, was quite a well-off man in Worthing and owned property all over the town.
What was his name?
He was Edward John Antonio Thompson. He was unemployed, walked from Bedford to find a job, and ended up in Worthing, where the wife of a saddle maker gave him a job, which is lucky because he couldn't really have walked any further. So he kind of ran out of country to walk across finding a job. She gave him a job. He ended up taking over the business, became very successful, owned loads of property around here, and all that was left by the time of my grandparents was that they both grew up around here, both in Lyndhurst Road, I think. Yeah. Both went to school in Sussex Road School, and yeah, lived and worked locally for years. So it feels a bit like kind of coming back to my family's turf, moving back here.
This isn't the first time that the people of this area have celebrated a royal occasion. In 1897, local residents celebrated Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee in Homefield Park.
This is Dagmar Street, and Dodd and my husband Emmanuel have had the idea of getting everyone together for quite a while, and it just seemed an ideal opportunity with the wedding to get all the neighbours socialising and enjoying the day.
Out the houses, make sure we know each other.
And so, did you know each other before, or have you?
Yeah, it's only 11 houses really in this street, so it's quite a close-knit street anyway. So, I mean, I've lived in the corner for 11 years. You've lived here
10 years.
10 years,
yes.
so you tend to know everyone up and down. Like parking wardens come round, we're knocking on each other's doors. You're getting a ticket, so it's that sort of neighbourhood. But that's where we go.
And this is the first street party you've had?
Yeah.
Yes, we've been planning to have one for quite a while.
Manuel's been trying for about 5 years, haven't you?
About 5 years. That's what I'm saying, 5 years.
I mean, he was quite lucky at Royal Wedding.
And the road was already closed because of gas work, so...
Yeah. In fact, the road was closed up to there up until Thursday, and they cleared it all for us and filled it all in, because the road was completely closed up until Thursday morning, when they spent the whole day just clearing it and sweeping it so we could do this.
Yeah, I mean, my name's Chris Jackson. I've been here, we've only been here 2 or 3 months. You know, this pub was struggling a bit, but it's got, you know, very much busy already. And obviously, like things like the street party happening alongside the pub have really helped. You know, and like all the locals, it really is becoming a locals pub. And yeah, they all seem to be enjoying it, rallying around on a day like today. It's absolutely wonderful, you know.
And what have you done to help with the street party today?
Well, I mean, not a lot, but we have, as I say, all the tables and chairs. Obviously, all the locals have been helping getting all the tables and chairs out today and everything. And obviously, just lending a few glasses and that. So it's you know, everybody's sort of rallied around and helped a bit, you know. And if we can help out, that's what a pub should be about, really.
In 1937, there were similar festivities for George VI's coronation, seen here in Newland Road.
I'm Terry. I've been manager here for 16.5 years now, working for Gary Cox, and basically it's a nice friendly locals pub.
And so what do you do here? What do the nights like?
Well, Friday and Saturdays always have a disco, occasionally karaoke, folk night last Tuesday in every month, and a quiz on Wednesday, and we've got a couple of good bar billiards teams. Originally it was a private house, which was extended, the front end of the bar was extended in the 1930s, and I believe the toilet block at the back was added then. But originally it was built as a private house. It was a doss house at one time, in the true sense of the word. Became a pub in roughly 1850, and it is actually one of the oldest buildings in this part of town. The house behind us, I believe, is one of the oldest. But the oldest pub is what is now the Jack Horner, what used to be the Anchor. That's the oldest surviving pub in town.
I'm Sophie, and basically we took over the pub a year ago in May, so we're coming up for an anniversary with my partner Lorraine. In December last year we actually bought the pub, so it is all ours now for another 25 years, so I would imagine we're here to stay, unlike some of the last landlords and things like that. But what we're trying to do with this place is, it was Worthing's only gay venue. We're still keeping it gay, but we're changing the name rather to Worthing's entertainment venue. So it's open for everybody, rather than just the gay crowd, it's open to everybody. Oh, this is my permanent, I'm actually transgender, so I'm actually changing my life to be female full-time. But that's no easy task. We all have issues to deal with, like whether you're gay, whether you're a lesbian, whatever.
You're wearing something that you've made yourself.
I did indeed, yes, because today's the royal wedding. I made a Union Jack t-shirt myself, and I did all the sequins myself. It took 3 days, so and I've got sequins stuck on my dining room table, my dogs, everywhere. It's just, I'm sick and tired of Union Jack, but it's lovely. No, absolutely.
Did you enjoy the royal wedding? Did you enjoy?
Yes, wonderful. Since 9 o'clock this morning, me and my friend Sean were at his place, watching on his 11-foot screen. It was gorgeous. We had champagne at 9 o'clock. We had breakfast, and it was just beautiful. I even cried at one point. It was just gorgeous, wonderful. Seriously enjoyed it. I'm Jason, but my official title, and not to shock anybody, is Lord Rene Jason Cohen of Loughborough in Scotland. I really am a lord.
I think we've had enough time.
I think we've had enough.
That's good. We've got good lot of stuff there.
There's one thing I'll tell you about this thing, because it made a huge impression on me. I saw a Boy Scout show here on that stage when I was very little, and my brother was in it, and that's why I was here watching. And they had 2 sticks or 3 and a bit of coloured paper and a bulb underneath it, and I thought that was magical. That was theatre. And ever since then, I've been interested in amateur theatre.
Some good then.
I performed on there with the school choir.
Anyway, thanks very much for everything.
Interested in theatre as well.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Anyway, cheerio.
Yeah. See you, Andy.
I think you've been very patient, Mr. Cameron.
Bye.
You've been very patient. Cheerio, my lad. Cheerio. I better give it a kiss.
When I say to my sisters we went to the dum-dum school because we didn't go to high school, they think it was not a dum-dum school. I said yes it was. We were taught the basic 3 R's, the minimum that they could teach us, and that was it.
Mary Ellen at the church turned up, and her ma turned up, and her pa turned up, and her little sister Gert, and her rich Uncle Bert, and the parson with his long white shirt turned up, and the telegram boy with his nose turned up. And in the telegram it said, I doesn't want to wed, so you'll find me in the river with me toes turned up. Sorry.